Welcome to the Toffee Blues, your source for all things Everton. I'm Ellis Nordhoff, and today it's the opposition view. I'm joined by Dave Azapardi from Talking Wolves to look ahead to Everton's big match against Wolves at the weekend. How are you doing, Dave?
I'm all good, Ellis, man. Thanks for having me. How are you?
I'm good, mate. Both teams are struggling at the minute, aren't they? I'm sure we're not the happiest of fans at the minute. Both teams winless, of course, as well. How are you feeling around Wolves at the minute?
Yeah, it's frustrating. I think, as you would have seen, and I'm sure we'll talk about, our summer has not been straightforward. We've had, a disappointed transfer window, key players leave the club, and manager change, which is far from ideal, less than a week before the season. Um, but we had our first game against Manchester United, and although we lost, we put in a really good performance. A lot of excitement last week going into our first home game against Brighton, and then we were very quickly humbled by Brighton. So yeah, going into this game, I think a lot of Wolves fans need and want something because, game week 3 and going into the international break in a couple of weeks' time, you want to make sure you got some points on the board.
Definitely. It's so important to get that first win, isn't it? I think we're both looking for it because the pressure just builds when you haven't got that win, and both teams need to get off to a good start to the
Mm,
season because if you start badly, it can get worse and worse. And as we saw with Leicester, they started badly and never really recovered, did they, in the end? So
exactly.
both teams, Everton and Wolves, will be trying to get out of that. But your summer's been particularly chaotic out of all the Premier League clubs, really. Could you tell us a bit more about what's gone on? Because, of course, Julian Lopetegui was your manager a few weeks ago and he's not anymore. So could you go into that for me?
Of course, yeah. So it all started really towards the end of last season because the board had come out and there was articles that had come out about Wolves' financial situation and basically saying that we're going into this summer, Wolves are going to have to be very much sell to buy, and because of financial fair play restrictions, they're going to have to be cautious about the money they spend. So Lopetegui apparently wasn't aware of that when he first joined the club in January. So it took him a long, long time to sort of understand the situation the club were in. So we were going throughout the remainder of May into June, basically not knowing if Lopetegui was going to be in charge for pre-season. There was then articles and statements coming out of the club saying Lopetegui's here, he's happy, he understands what we're going to try and do. Players like Ruben Neves, who we knew he was gonna go this summer. We probably got more money than we expected, though. Obviously, one of the first big names going over to Saudi Arabia this summer, and we probably got about 10 million quid more than what we wanted or expected for him. And it was early in the window, so Wolves fans were rubbing their hands together, thinking, we love Ruben, but we knew he was going to go, and the fact we got more money and it's early means we could, crack on this summer. But we've just seen more and more players leave, not necessarily key players, because I think players like Jimenez, like Nathan Collins, even weren't automatic starters in the team. Um, but Wolves haven't really reinvested in the squad, and then it gets to a couple of weeks before the season kicks off, and all of a sudden Lopetegui's having a bit of a wobble, and we see him go 6 days before the start of the Premier League season. I've spoke to people about this before, and people have spoke to me about it before, saying if you asked any Premier League fan or even Wolves fan a few weeks ago, who would you want in charge of your football club? Gary O'Neill would not have been the answer. So there was a lot of uncertainty in regards to him. I think he impressed a lot of Wolves fans with that first initial game against United, but obviously question marks have come up again since the game against Brighton on Saturday. So there's a lot of work for him to do. There's still a lot of people for him to try and sort of get the right side of. But it's going to be. I think it's one of those appointments. It could work really well for Wolves, or it could be an absolute disaster.
Yeah, it's such a chaotic start to the season. You don't want your manager leaving with 6 days until the new season.
Exactly.
And it's good to see that you were able to bring someone in so quickly. It shows that you had a bit of a plan at least, which is
Hmm.
good to see. But like you say, when you've sold players and you feel like it's sell to buy, and even after you've sold those players, it's disappointing when you let go of someone like Ruben Neves' quality and you
Yeah.
can't just use that money to reinvest in the squad. And of course, I think perhaps you were hampered a bit by the obligation on Mateus Cunha's contract as well
Yeah.
from the loan. Like, has it put Wolves into a bit of financial trouble? It seems to be from the outside. It seems like you guys are struggling a bit with FFP.
Yeah, that's what the club and that's what the press are sort of saying to us. It's frustrating because there's a lot of people who have taken the time to work out financially, like what Wolves owe, what or the amortization and all that sort of. It goes over my head, but a lot of people think that Wolves do have that space in financial fair play that they can buy players and spend money if they want to, and then it goes back to the narrative: do the owners actually want to put money into this football club? So it's going to be an interesting one. We've seen today that, and I don't know if it will come to fruition, Manchester City looking at Mateus Nunes. And again, that you would expect Wolves are going to get a good amount of money for that. So it'll be really interesting to see if out of that money, what does get pumped back into the club. So it's been a difficult year and difficult season. I think that the Cunha one, which you mentioned, I really like Cunha. I think he's a great player. But did we need to spend £50 million on one player in a position that we didn't necessarily need at the time as well? So it's sort of relied on him to have a really big season this year. And he's shown already glimpses of it in the first couple of games. But we really need some more goals and assists from him as well.
Yeah, well, I watched the Manchester United game, the first one of the season, and I thought Mateus Cunha was fantastic in that. And of
Mhm.
course, since Manchester United haven't really impressed, so part of that performance may have been them not
Yeah.
playing that well. But I thought you guys were really organised, and I was thinking that you didn't deserve to lose that game, and it was very similar to what we've seen on the first day of the season against Fulham,
Mm.
where we also were the better side and didn't get the win. So, would you say that the 0 points on the tally at the minute doesn't tell the whole story about the season so far?
Yeah, I think so. I think that, like I said earlier, the United game we were very good in, and we should have had a penalty at the end of the game, as you would have seen as well. And there was lots of talking points about that. So I think we could have easily gone into that game or come out of that game with a point, or
Mhm.
at least the Brighton game. I think they fully deserved the 3 points. We did had some bits of quality in that match, but just 10 minutes after half time of just pure stupidity and loss of concentration cost us the game really. And Brighton was just so clinical. But you look, if you're into the stats, you look at the expected goals, the big chances created, and so on. Wolves are right up there, so it's just a matter of, I'm hoping it's just a matter of when we're going to score more goals rather than if, because the last 3 years, the last year under Nuno, sorry, Bruno Lage's year under Lage and Lopetegui last year, we've averaged less than a goal a game, and if we want to consistently stay in the Premier League and even fight again for European football, that's something that has to improve.
It's something that's become synonymous with Wolves, isn't it? Not scoring goals in the last few years, and that's not something that you want people to think of when they think of your club. But luckily enough for you, you're playing a team at the weekend who also doesn't score goals, so
Yeah.
it's going to be an interesting battle, isn't it? I'm sure it might not be the pick if people are choosing what to watch at the weekend, but obviously we'll both be watching it. And how are you feeling ahead of that game? What do you think of the prospect of playing Everton at Goodison Park?
It's going to be a tricky game, away games, and especially at Goodison where the fans, it's going to be a good crowd there. So it's going to be a difficult match either way. We've had mixed success there since we've been back promoted. Believe it or not, I think our only away win last season, or no, one of two away wins was at Goodison Park last season.
It's typical, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. So it's going to be tough, but Wolves are really desperate, to get something, as Everton are as well. But I watched you guys against Villa, and I didn't think you were great, if I'm being completely honest. I think you'll be disappointed with the defensive side of things. But I know with injuries, like going forward, you just didn't offer enough either. So whereas Wolves, although we haven't scored the first couple of games, even as Brighton, we look good going forward. So I think depending on how Dice sets up, it'll be a really close game, really interesting game. But I really hope Wolves can, try and get the front foot and score some goals on Saturday.
Well, I think you've got better attacking quality than we have available at the moment. You've got Mateus Cunha, you've got Pedro Neto, who's still trying to recapture the form that he had
Exactly.
in recent years. And then Fabio Silva's returned as well. And I've been slightly impressed by him so far. Yes, he's not got his goal, but I feel like he's been getting in the right positions and he's been getting chances, hasn't he? So do you feel like it'll come good for him and for Mateus Cunha and Neto soon?
Yeah, I think Cunha is, he's had I think instilled in him as a player anyway. He played under Simeone. He's gonna have that hard work, that grit, that determination. And I think this year he's had he's settled down in England. He's had a full preseason and he's really showed that, on the ball, he's so quick, and he showed some real quality against Brighton as well. Pedro Neto, like you said, I think it was that COVID season, he was phenomenal. And unfortunately got injured right towards the end of that season. He was on and off with injuries the last couple of years, but he's every year he seems to have a really good preseason and just never gets going after that. Again, he's had a good preseason this summer. I thought the last two games he's picked up some really nice positions, and it's just that end product out of Neto. Can we get more assists? Can we get more goals out of him? And Fabio Silva's another one. Obviously, he gets so much stick. I don't think he's 100% happy in England at the moment. But I don't think Wolves want to sell him. He had a productive year last year with 2 loan spells. And like you said, he's picked up some great positions, predominantly been coming off the bench in pre-season. And coming off the bench, I think the game was a Celtic we played in a pre-season friendly. They were 1-0 up. And then he comes off the bench for the last 20 minutes and they just can't deal with him. He's just so energetic. He just wants to make things happen. He came off the bench against United, had 1 or 2 great opportunities that he forced Onana into saving, but just picked up some nice positions. And then he gets the start against Brighton. Now, the starting 11 against Brighton, I think every Wolves fan would have picked based off form, based off who we wanted to see. But for some reason, Fabio just looks so nervous. He actually scored a goal very early on. It was disallowed for offside. And then he had a key opportunity at 1-0 down before half time. He beats the offside trap, phenomenal run. And then for one reason or another, just doesn't sort his body out and, forces Steele into a save. So it wasn't a great performance from him, but I'm really, he's showing the qualities. He's one of those players that if it doesn't work out at Wolves, I think he could go back to Europe, wherever he goes, and have a really successful career. But I am hoping he stays at Wolves, scores some goals, and proves some of the doubters wrong as well.
Well, you certainly paid a lot of money for him, so you want to you
Yeah,
want to get a
exactly.
bit of a repayment for what you paid for him there. And we've actually got a young striker from the Portuguese league as well, in Yusuf Chamiti. We've just signed.
Yeah, I like
You probably
Chimiti.
won't see him at the weekend. I don't think he's quite at the fitness level that Deitch requires just yet. But you're playing us at quite a good time, I'd say, because we're in a bit of an injury crisis at the moment.
Mm,
Dwight McNeil, Alex Iwobi, now Dominic Calvert-Lewin, Jack Harrison, all players who are injured. Seamus Coleman at the back as well. So attacking wise, we haven't got a lot there really, and our wide options. We've been playing James Garner, a central midfielder, on the wing. We've also been playing Alex Iwobi on the wing, and his best position's in the centre, really. And
yeah,
now without Calvert Lewin, we know how much we rely on him, and just for the structure of the team, really, to play that way that we want to. And you'll probably see Neil Maupay start up front for Everton at the weekend, and he doesn't quite suit the system, and his confidence is completely shot at the minute. But
yeah.
if you are looking at our team, what are you worried about? There might be nothing, there might be some things, but what is it that you're concerned about with Everton at the minute?
I think that midfield battle will be an interesting one. I think that's probably, correct me if I'm wrong. I'm probably say that's one of your strongest areas with some of the players that you've got there,
Other than
both
last week, yeah.
yeah, yeah, both technically and physically. I think, like you said, going forward, and even at the back, I read a stat earlier about Tarkowski and Michael Keane together. Your form and your record is absolutely awful. So
Yeah, it
it'll
is.
be interesting to see, what Dyche does about that on Saturday. But I think the midfield battle will be an interesting one. We've got the young João Gomez, Mario Lemina, both. They like to get involved. They like a good tackle. So that'll be interesting to see who comes out on top, because that could be, a big factor on who gets the win in this game.
Yeah, the midfield battle's always important to Everton because that is where we have the most quality. And last week they just weren't organised enough. We had players who were just vacating the positions and getting
Yeah,
forward when they shouldn't have, and we had no structure in that midfield. And when you're coming up against the likes of Douglas Luiz and Kamara and John
yeah.
McGinn, we were outran completely. And hopefully in this game for us, we have a bit more control of the midfield. You have got a new signing though, haven't you? Boubacar Traore, he's a midfielder,
Mhm.
isn't he? Would he be fit to play at the weekend?
Possibly. So we had him on loan from the start of last season. But again, he had a short spell sort of before Christmas, and then he got injured. And then under Lopetegui, never really got a look in. Probably had a couple of appearances, and then he's been away with Marley during the summer break, so not really had much of a preseason. But it'll be like, yeah, for us, Nunes is obviously suspended. He's probably predominantly been playing out wide. So for us, the most logical thing would probably to be bring in another wide player. But there's every chance that he could play a 4-3-3 on Saturday and bring Boubacar Traore into the midfield. And he, in terms of a like for like, I think he's a tall, very physical midfielder, similar to likes of probably Onana or Decore or something like that. So it'll be interesting to see what happens on there. But I would assume for Nunes, it'll probably be someone like Huang coming in to replace him.
Well, Huang loves scoring against us, so I'm not really
Yeah.
looking forward to that. He does like a goal against Everton. But overall, then, final thoughts. What are you thinking for the game? Give me a prediction and give me your final thoughts on the matter.
Well, yeah, I think it'll be a close game. I think if either a team, like we've said, don't like scoring goals, so it wouldn't surprise me if 5 p.m. on Saturday it's a 0-0 draw. But I think if a team does come out on top, it's probably only going to be a goal either side. I've got to back my own team. I'm watching Everton. I think Wolves just have that little bit more. So I think I've gone with a 1-0 Wolves win. but it's going to be a tough game. And I think both teams are going to want to be desperate to get some points on the board. International break's not too far away. Obviously, got this week and next week, but both teams are going to want to go into that break with at least something on the board and making sure they're not in that bottom three. So they've got to look at themselves in that relegation zone for a couple of weeks over the international break. So big game. But yeah, I'm just about backing my boys to get the 3 points.
Well, I think it does a lot for you mentally getting that win, doesn't it? And not having
For
to
sure.
look in the bottom three during the international break. It's the last thing you want, really. I'm going to go with 1-0 to Everton because, like you, it's not going to be a game of many goals. And I feel like whoever does get that first goal probably will win because that
Mhm.
seems to be the way both teams just can't put the ball in the net at the minute. And the first one to do it will probably win the game. And you guys have scored a goal. We haven't scored
Yeah.
one yet. So I think the roof would lift off Goodison if a goal went in because we're just not expecting one at the minute. But
Yeah.
that's all for our opposition preview of the Wolves game on Saturday. Thanks very much for coming on, Dave. It's been great to have you on.
Thanks, Ellis. No, I appreciate it. Good to chat.
Well, that's all for now on the Toffee Blues. Please do leave a like, subscribe, and drop a comment. Let us know what you think ahead of the Wolves game on Saturday. Hopefully, Everton do it. Dave wouldn't agree with me there, but hopefully we do. Well, that's all for now. See you in a bit.